Today we are talking with Tatiana and Stuart Quint. Um, they are going to be sharing with us their adoption experience and process. As a husband and wife, did you ever talk to one another about what kind of family that you hope to have one day?
Did we talk? I think a lot just happened. No. So very simple. Family 1 of 12. Family 1 of 1.
Okay.
We somehow ended up meeting in the middle by God's providence. Specific to adoption. So she can talk about her vision, if you will. I don't mean a dream vision, but more of a idea. How did it come about, or what? In my situation, it was very strange because I fly on business to different places in Latin America and Eastern Europe. And on one flight I was watching, and there's this video they were showing. There's a long flight, and they show this video of this guy. In fact, he used to be, I think, with the Philadelphia 76ers. He's a general manager or something like that. Then he went to Orlando. And they were showing his family, and he had like kids from Korea, Brazil, I mean, you name it. And there were like 6 of them all playing basketball. Apparently, it turned out later I found out I was a Christian man, and it just somehow really stuck with me how cool that was, but also how, taking care of these kids and not really showing any bias or any, whatever. This was his family, and that just really stuck with me for when I thought, I wonder if God's telling me something. I didn't hear a voice, but just a sense of, look, and he talks about the widow and the orphan, take care of them, and it stuck with me. So when we met, and then later before we got married, that it came up in discussion about, I wonder if at some point we adopt, and my wife had a similar vision. Why don't you talk about how you came to it?
It's not vision, it's just desire. It was because first of all, it was one of my nephews was adopted by my oldest brother. Yes, I'm sorry. Second of all, when I went to Bible school back in my country in Uzbekistan, I had a chance to go to schools and orphanages just to work with kids there. And I saw so many children there, and just my heart just went after them. And so I was thinking, if someday ever, well, first of all, if I get married, because I was not married then, if I get married and we have kids, hopefully I will talk to my husband, and maybe God will just give us desire to adopt as well. It's just there was something even before having my own kids. And so yes, working in orphanages and helping a lot, and then actually having some kids over just to take them to their parents to prison or something else, just doing something with them. And so then, so I finished school, and I came here when I was 30, so I was already I was not married yet, I didn't have kids, and I was just, okay, I don't even know if I ever will have a family. So then I met this guy, and when we actually went through premarital counseling, and there was a question, well, how would you like, I forgot the exact question, but something about building your family. What's your desire for the future? And I remember just thinking, praying there, God, how can I bring up adoption to him? We are not even married, we don't have kids, I don't even know what to expect. And here I am just talking about adoption. Yet it was just so strong with me. So when we had this question, I told him, just go first and tell me, what do you think? And that's exactly what he told me. And I was speechless there. I'm sitting there thinking, he is the one who brought up this question before I even mentioned that. And so that's how I really felt very comfortable with him, just telling him, yes, I would love to at some point. I just don't know when and how many. And but it was our mutual desire. So we got married. We couldn't have kids, and we could have probably gone through the whole, I don't know, just the whole thing of trying to get pregnant or something else. But since we already had this desire, so it was more like, okay, maybe God was just saying, well, that's why, meaning like adoption is your natural way of having children. And so it was somehow it was just very natural for both of us to start the process. We were just not ready for the process to be so difficult and so long and so. It was hard, the very first one especially. But then, yeah.
Could I just mention one other thing, because this is later on, but it was before we got married, and this is in Psalm 27. It's not a sermon, and it says, this is David, and it says in verse 10, though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. And it goes on, teach me your way, O Lord, lead me in a straight path. This verse was something I had, we all come from different family backgrounds, and one of the things I remember was I was very close friends with a family with whom I got to know when I was in Mexico. And older woman, the mother of the family and wife, and we were just talking about stuff and how it wasn't, not everybody has a great family background. And she read me those verses, and something else stuck in me about, God is ultimately the Father, even if regardless of whatever's going on. And I just think about that because with adoption, about, God adopts those who are his children, those who believe in him and repent and believe and follow him. And there's a sense of smaller sense, obviously, but a smaller sense of, wow, could it be that God might want me somehow to take care of a child without parents? And so coming back to what my wife was sharing, that it seems, looking back, it's a lot easier to say, oh yeah, that made sense, but at the time, all these little building blocks were already being planted, and God did a wonderful thing for us to give us this opportunity to be parents.
As you were preparing to open your home to adoption, what sorts of things did you think about or pray about?
Ladies before gentlemen.
Or any concerns or fears,
Well,
struggles you had intellectually or emotionally, or
Well, I think I'll start a little bit. So clearly, before and after you go through the process, there's a lot of stuff you don't know till after you go through it. And I think just as naturally, before becoming a parent and afterward, regardless of the fact that you were a child, you still don't know about parenting until you're actually in the thick of it. There's a lot of blessing and loss. So same way with adoption. I think I would say it was interesting. I'd say before 9/11, I worked in one of the towers. We were going in fairly, I don't want to say nonchalant, but I would say fairly, maybe naive, in the sense of, we thought, okay, well, they're just, not the kids, but more governments and bureaucracies and things like that. Oh, they're just waiting for us to come and take one of their poor children, and it's going to be great, and this and that. And I think after 9/11, one, it gave us a more sober view of the world, but I think secondly, it was a good wake-up call, because there were some difficulties through the process. I mean, things took longer, and it had nothing to do with our first child. I mean, she was precious. It was more the process that took longer. You'd think that, and be frank, and I'm talking about international adoption, but there are a lot of barriers to it that God made us realize without him we weren't going to overcome. And, different people did different things. For us, it was, I would say, we had a little bit of pride because we were going to Russia. We both spoke Russian. We thought, hey, they'll just welcome us with open arms. Wrong. That did not happen. In fact, there were all kinds of bureaucratic snafus and complications. There was even, as it turned out, that you have to do 2 trips. One to meet the child, and the second to wait till they give you a trial to come and hopefully take the child back. And we learned that there was one moment where they almost gave her to some other couple, to a Russian couple, where under that law, the Russians actually have priority over the foreigners. Were it not for someone checking, they said, oh, wait a minute, we almost made a mistake. And we definitely saw the hand of God on that one. But, he was gracious. He led us through it. You say, well, what did you do to prepare? Well, we have this thing called the railroad apartment in New York City. It's about, like living in a hallway about, with 4 or 5 rooms, but they're all connected to one another. So it wasn't that we had this huge house or something like that. But I don't think that's really the issue. I think the issue that we needed was maturity and love and patience. Um,
Dependence on God.
Depending on God, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't that, I mean, again, first child's just a beautiful child. She still is a beautiful child, growing child. But you also recognize that, you get in there, and I think it's true, adoption, foster, natural, I think in a sense it doesn't matter at a certain point because you realize that you're now an adult teaching that child and you realize, man, this is not so easy. And really the only perfect father is God. And so, anyways, I got off a little bit, but what would you say?
No, to me it was Stuart actually touched on that. I would say that he as well, but especially me, I definitely was not proud of doing it, but it was more thinking, definitely naive and being proud, thinking that there's a child who needs a family. Here's a family who would love to have that child. Just put these two things together. It's so simple. And definitely, yes, he did say that, thinking, well, I'm Russian myself, I speak language, he speaks Russian, just every single door will be open in front of us, and hearing so many horrible stories about Americans adopting Russian children and going through so many things, and I'm thinking, well, it will never happen to us because we're just different. Well, it happened many more times than to some families, because God was just really putting us down and saying, it has nothing to do with you. It is my hand which does the whole thing. And that's when Stuart and I, when we finally learned it, that's when we realized, you know what, God, there's nothing. We were at the point, Stuart mentioned that, I actually don't remember that they were about to give it to Russian family, but there were a lot of delays when finally they said, you know what, we can't get it through, it just doesn't work. You guys either start new process or do something else, and that's when we really came to God and said, you know what, God, if it's yours, you will finish it. If not, well, if not, then it's not. As hard as it will be on us, it's not. And finally, when we really put ourselves under His hand, and that's when we start to see the things moving. And that's when I learned, you know, it doesn't matter your language, your background, whatever you do in life, it really is Him who is doing it. And once you learn it and really just when kneel before Him, that's when you start to see the whole thing moving. And that's what God.
Well, let me just add something if I could, because we talked about the first process. In some ways, these subsequent processes, because we went through 3, we have 4 children. One sense, it was a little bit easier the second, third time because we'd already gone through it. But in another sense, they all had their challenges. We had one where the second one, I mean, there were several complications. It ended up being more the judge we're dealing with who, he just was being very difficult. It was almost if he didn't want to, I don't know, it was us, Americans, whatever, but of course God turns the head of the judges as He does anybody else, and He allowed that. And then the third situation happened very quickly. We were used to a long wait, but this one happened in a matter of months, which for us was, wait a minute, we just adopted our second child, now we're going to double in less than 6 months, and it was really rapid fire. And, kind of like, you also don't appreciate, or we didn't appreciate the dynamics when you start, you add children, it's not just how they relate to mom and papa, how they relate to each other. And we were really blessed that God's worked that through. In fact, we see a lot of blessing now. I mean, our second child, he had what was called a cleft palate, which basically was a hole between the upper jaw and the nose. It's nothing, it's a physical deformity. But it also meant he didn't talk for a long time, whereas most kids at that age would talk. And so he had problems in the beginning. He wanted to talk, but he couldn't. And the last adoption we had, our last 2 kids come in, I say it was a big blessing for him, and actually for his older sister as well, because she also had challenges with language and speech. These 2 are like chatterboxes. Like little adults. And one of them in particular is she's like, okay, Alina, this is great, but can we just hold that for another moment? But she just wants to tell you what's going on in the world. But you really see God's hand because they brought something to our 2 older And to older brought something to them, obviously, as well,
Mm.
in the sense of, um, you know, okay, you have your brother sibling fights, what do you expect, human beings, but just a sense of family, a sense of, you know, now you got little soccer teams playing against one another in our backyard, and,
Mm.
you know, real blessings in that.
Mm. How did your family, your extended family, respond to your initial desire to want to pursue adoption? And you know, if we could do you know, before and after, you know, current, you know, how did they respond when you initially proposed this idea, and how do they respond now to adoption?
Well, let me take that first. You're gonna have a lot more to say.
I'm trying not to.
Well, no. But what I say is, I told you I'm one of one.
Yeah,
So
you have
extended
12.
family, extended
Exactly.
family is really easy to talk about. I'm in.
What did your alter ego
That's
say?
So I mean, you know, the bottom line, you read Genesis, right? And it's like, you know, a man shall separate from his family and cling to his wife, and they become one family. And that's not to exclude the importance of, look, you know, you take care of, you know, you look after your parents to the extent you have them and whatnot. But the reality is that you are the family now. So your job, you know, your accountability is to God, and then it's your own family. So for me, it was, okay, whether you people liked it or didn't, that's really your problem. I mean, it's what does God think, and He put it in our heart, and my sense was, you know what, let's do it, and you know, God will take care of the issues, and He certainly has. But I think my wife would have more to comment on extended family.
Well, when I mentioned that to my mom, who Stuart just mentioned, I'm one of 12, so my parents had 12 kids. When I first mentioned to my mom, she was like, "Are you sure you guys want to do that?" I was 100% certain that she would be, "Sure, go ahead, it's so wonderful, Christian, you know, it's just all that," and it's like, she would be so supportive. So, and she started, "Well, just you guys, you travel so much now, you can do so many things, it's just the two of you, you're so free. And why do you want to put some burden in your family?" And I'm thinking, "Mom, am I talking to you?" It was on the phone. I was so speechless at that moment. I just didn't expect that at all. So yes, as Stuart said, you know, we prayed about it, and then at some point we said, "Well, we are doing it, regardless you guys support us or not." She said, "No, of course we will pray for you. It's just more just, I wanted to make sure that that's something that you need to do. That, and as I said, we did have a nephew in our family who was adopted as well." And then, yeah.
Well, I was going to mention one other thing which I think is relevant to her family. So her father, for a time, grew up in an orphanage.
Right.
And over there, growing up in an orphanage, it's not like Little Orphan Annie. It was a rough place. So, to be
Right,
fair to
that could be
her
true,
mom,
yeah.
that she had secondhand experience about that.
That could be too, correct.
How have your own perceptions changed, you know, about adoption? Like, how have they changed through this process?
Definitely, I think my wife alluded before, just now, to the problems. First, when you hear about adoption, they go, and particularly, well, I think it doesn't matter international, domestic, but oh well, what sort of background did they come out of, and this and that, what culture, what was in the orphanage. Now what we see is, you know what, the Bible has the answers. It doesn't, and you see whether it's an adopted kid, a foster kid, a natural kid. A kid is a kid, and it's a person with a soul made in God's image, but also fallen by what happened in the Garden of Eden, just as we are. So they're going to have their personalities. They're going to have certain things where they're stronger, certain things are weaker, aptitudes, weaknesses, and I think it's just really helping them. God's, you know, just like any child, God gives a child to parents for a time to raise them, to teach them in the training and admonition of the Lord. That's our job. And yeah, I mean, there's some. I think there's some advantage if, you know, I can think particularly more so. I mean, our kids are younger, but I think if someone takes an older child who, you know, maybe they don't know the language or the culture as well. There could be an advantage if you know that already, but at the end of the day, you're still dealing with people issues. So I think that's one big change I would say for myself at least about how I've looked at adoption before and after.
Yeah, I agree too. Well, to me, actually, I don't even know what's. To me, it's there's so much my kids. I don't like as I said when you guys start to mention adoption. To me, it's more like adoption. What like really like going back and thinking, what did we go through that we need to talk about now? Because it is so much my family now. I don't even think of whenever we have to deal with something, it never comes to me. Well, it's because of his or her background. It doesn't really because to me it's more, as Stuart mentioned, that's just his or her life, his soul, and their sin in life, and we just need to help them to deal with it. The only thing which sorry,
Yeah.
the only thing which I thought in adoption it was process, which was taking so much, and to me that was the whole life at that time. I thought once we get over it, that will be it. And actually the way it is because process does take a lot, which I was not prepared for that. But kids themselves with their problems or whatever they come, as I said, I'm one of 12. I've seen so much. So to me, whatever I see, I know it can happen. And we just pray to God and ask for strength how to deal with it. So.
What has been the most difficult part of this process for you? Personally, as a family, as a whole, as a whole family unit.
When you say process, do you mean getting the child, or do you mean getting and having the child?
Either, and or maybe the transition between, when you had the two children you already had, and then, bringing in two more, those kinds of changes, was there, what was the most difficult part of that, or just any of it? I mean, it's open to whatever you might want to share.
Well, what happens is that I find that certain things that you say, oh, this is very difficult, like my wife mentioned, the process just seems so taxing. Emotionally, I think, more than anything else.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, well that got easier because now it's done.
Yeah.
But then now you get to raise a child. Have fun. Little kids, little problems. Big kids, bigger problems. But I think there's also bigger opportunity. So what I'm thinking about, for example, with the last two, we had a situation where when we were in transit, and I forget what the situation was. We were in Moscow, and maybe it was just they didn't want to go to sleep. Maybe it was also because they were in such transition. It's hard for an adult, but it's even harder for a kid. Especially if you're 4 years old and 2 years old as they were then. And they just, where's Aunt Valia? Where's Aunt Maya? Ah! And it was getting almost, I don't want to say violent, but rather loud and emotional. Not with us, but with them. And man, I'm not a people person. I'm not a crisis manager, and somehow God showed us what you need to do. Don't blow up with them. Don't get emotional with them. Just they need to go to bed. And we had several things like that once we got back to the States with them. And I think that was a challenge. That was but some of that has gone away. But then you have other things to deal with. I come back to the mix of personalities. I think that is one of the biggest challenges. It's just how they interact with each other, how they interact with you, the parent, and then also I think just how they deal themselves with things. You think that, so where I was going was that with the oldest, I can see with the two girls, it's more a challenge to help them in certain areas of learning. The two boys are just sharp as a whip. But they've got other issues. They've got more behavioral issues. So you have to be flexible in terms of, okay, you deal with it as it is. And I think, I want to say one other thing, and I heard this once from a guy, and he said, well, they're my kids, and at least I know my genes, I know what's coming. And I think that is the most arrogant statement I've heard in a while. And the reason is that you're praising yourself. And the reality is that a kid is a kid. I mean, you can have godly parents, and I've seen the situations where you have a kid that just has a lot of problems. And or vice versa, where you see a completely godless family environment, and the kid is, God takes that child and takes him or her and blesses them. So, again, I think the biggest message from us would be, once they're in your family, it's your kid, it's kid issues, it's people issues. They're little people. It's not an adopted kid issue. Yes, they may have had certain things that, I don't know, I just look at the people in life have different, God allows different backgrounds for different reasons, people with different reactions, and you deal with it, and it's not always easy. There's a lot of questions we're still trying to figure out what's the answer to, and we only know that God knows the answer, but it's not because of adoption per se, it's because of you have a kid and you have a parent.
In the years that your children have come into your lives, how have you seen God work in your hearts?
Am I going to answer all the questions or what?
No, this question definitely brings me home. I always thought, I would never say that, but I always thought that by adopting, or just raising your child, period, you try to invest just to put as much as you have of yourself and whatever you know and learn to put into the child. Never ever did I know that God actually was using our children to work on my heart, which to me was such a huge surprise. I remember at one point with one of my sons, I just struggled so much with one behavior. I was losing myself basically there. And at one point I just sat there and just turned to him and just kind of saying, how many times I will have to deal with it till you actually get it? Like just really just being so lost there. And all of a sudden it's almost like I hear God saying, well, how many times will I allow this situation till you change your attitude toward the whole thing? And that's where I just sat and I was frozen, and he turns to me and he was expecting like anything. And he turns like, Mom, are you okay? And that's when I just turned to him and was like, you know what, actually, I had to ask for forgiveness and said, look, you know what, God is just showing me that I'm dealing with you in the wrong way. He's showing me, yes, this behavior, it is wrong. We'll have to, talk and deal. But it's almost like he's saying, I'll take care of it on its own time, whenever time will come. But you're the one who need to change your attitude and just the whole thinking and whatever I was doing, my approach and all of that. And that's when it was almost like a huge light in my head, just kind of looking at my kids and seeing not even so much I put something, I invest in them, basically God is using them to work on my heart, to work on my life. And there's still so much to work on, I'm just afraid of that. So, meaning like there's still so many things that God just permits and allows, and many times just as a repetition. And that's what I just see it as a huge blessing. I don't ever blame it as it's because of their background, that's why they're doing this or that. But actually God is showing, no, it's not them. I'll take care of them at some time, whenever it will be time. Either using you or somebody else, but it's you I'm working on at this point. And that's just, as I said, it was humbling, definitely. And just, it showed me that it's not just them who benefited a lot from us, but it's us who benefit a lot from them.
I'll tell you another angle. So we adopted our first child. So I was an only child, and let's just say that there are a lot of things that were not a model for me when I grew up. And one of those consequences, there was some concern about, well, could I be a father? And I trust my heavenly Father. I never trust my earthly father. I don't trust this guy to be a good earthly father, but thank him that he's helped me in spite of my concerns and my weaknesses and inconsistencies to deal with that. So, and as a girl, she was a girl, so okay, I can deal with that. It was when we adopted our first boy, and that was a tough one. Not because of him.
Tough for him, actually.
Tough for me.
For me, somehow it was
because I said, God, I have no clue what to do with a male. I don't know how to fix a car. I don't know these things. What am I supposed to do? And plus, this guy, he's like a little bear. He can be cuddly, he can be cute, but man, he to be shown. These are the boundaries.
Mm.
He's a smart guy. But, and that, if you, my wife was sharing about one of our sons who is difficult for her. And I wonder if in any family where you have more than one kid, if there's at least one child for one parent who's like their match. It's almost like God says, I know you're weak here, I'm going after that. Because I'm working on your character. You're supposed to be like Christ more. But it's not easy. Even today we had some stuff and just thinking, Lord, why, why me and why is he in our family? But then on the way back it was, wait a minute, okay God, I still don't know the answer to all these questions, but what I do know is that you put him here. On paper you'd say, well, this is a mismatch in a sense because different things. I'm not a roly-poly, I'm somewhat direct and maybe distant at times. But you know what, you put him here. And you know what you're doing and I don't. So you're going to have to show me how to be a father to him, how to love this guy. And also to see, he's made in your image. There's lots of blessings in him. But also that he needs help. He's like, you think about the picture of the shepherd with the sheep on his back and, taking that sheep, he's going to wander that bush there and there's a nasty wolf there and he grabs him out and he takes him. And sometimes you might have to hold on for dear life to that sheep's legs until he grows and learns on his own. Don't go there. And there's some of that going on too. Again, though, I come back, is that because he's adopted? I'd argue no. I think that's personality. That's human nature.
What would you say to a couple that may be considering adoption?
A lot of times you think about, how can you bless a child by adopting them or helping them?
For the...
You know what?
Yeah,
we're the ones who are blessed.
Exactly.
Even with the difficulties, even with the roller coaster ride and stuff, because it's an honor that God would allow us, with all our frailty, with all our sin, he'd allow us to actually do something productive. He'd actually want to use us. I still don't know why. It's so it's a very, I don't know, it's a very interesting world in that sense. It's not what you think it is. Like I said, I guess two things that come to that. Once you get after the point of adoption, it's your child now. And it's a person, it's human nature, it's all this stuff in Proverbs you read about. Train a child or don't train a child and you'll live with the consequences. But it's also, it's not, like my wife said earlier, it's not just, you teach a child your great wisdom. Well, right. but it's actually that God's using that child to teach you. And it is a tremendous blessing. We have a lot of fun. It's not all just travails and tears and toil.
We do have challenges.
We have challenges, there's no doubt. But I think to her point about screaming to the whole world, go ahead and adopt. I think you should have a very sober estimate of it. Not it's not for the faint-hearted, but at the same time, God's calling you. Get involved, and like we were talking earlier at the break, that getting involved with orphans doesn't just mean adopting. It could be helping someone to adopt. Maybe you pray for them. Maybe you give them, help them financially. It could also be that somebody's just adopted, and all of us parents need an occasional break from our kids as much as we love them. So babysit them. And it's that there are many ways that you can be supportive without having to be directly in there. Of course, if God calls you to do that, or if God calls you to be a missionary to orphans, wonderful, praise the Lord. But that's not the only way.
Be strong.
Be strong in the Lord, because you're not going to be strong.
Correct.
You're gonna find you going with this save the world mindset. Aren't I doing a favor? And you're gonna find out, no, there's difficulty, and I would imagine I know that's the case even with domestic adoption, based on people that I've known. But if you pray about like any decision, you seek the Lord on it, you pray, you read His Word. He gave you a mind, so do your research, do your homework, get with like-minded believers who are also in the same mind, who can help counsel you in the right direction. And if that's where you should go, then go for it, and the Lord will take care of the details. And if not, again, like we said before, there's a lot of other ways. It's not that you have to feel compelled to do it. Well, it's interesting because people tend, at least I tend to think this way, tended to think this way, that adoption is a somewhat unusual thing. Oh, your special calling, or it's those people over there or something to do it. And yet, when you read the scriptures, if you are in Christ, you are adopted. You are not a natural. I mean, yes, God made us, but because we walked into sin and loved it and loved the things God hates, God had to adopt us. It wasn't just Jesus dying on the cross to save us from sin. It was Jesus dying and raising from the dead so that we could become joint heirs with him. Think of Romans 8. The Spirit cries out with our spirit, Abba Father, the spirit of adoption. And you see that word in the New Testament. So, I think of that word adoption, I think of the word privilege, but again, it's not, they're so privileged to be with us. Well, you can debate that, ask them when they're adults, but, it's a privilege for the parents to do that too, because in a sense, for the Christian, you're getting that from God. You're being called a child of God. Which, well, wait a minute, what do I, he says I'm made in his image, and yet there's so much stuff that's so opposite of who he is. Though he promises, of course, we're going to be conformed to his image in the end. So that's the one thought that I had. I don't know if you have anything.
Maybe one more thing I can add. The one we were talking about, that guys, that we don't really hide it from anyone. Our kids do know that they're adopted. They just don't know all of the details yet. They're still little to even understand biological, not biological, whatever is going on. So we probably would appreciate that people, as I said, we are not hiding it. There's nothing that they have heard the word adoption many times at home as well. But to them, adoption, we usually say that they're very, very special to us by God himself. He brought them into our family. I guess what I'm trying to say that sometimes people would ask very, not straight, I don't know how to say the word,
Undelicate
questions right in front of them. And sometimes kids would even look at me like not even knowing what's going on. It's like who's biological or how old they were and all of that. So it makes me a little uncomfortable. Not that I'm hiding something from kids. We just really feel like they're not there yet to grasp the whole thing. Like our oldest one, we already talked with her, so we had a special time and she knows the whole thing. She understands much more. With youngers, they're just not there yet. They're waiting for the moment. And so many times they would just kind of look at us like, what are you guys talking about? Like, not saying it, but obviously their look would show.
Right.
So we probably would appreciate that if you have any questions, just come to us. We can definitely fill you in, tell you whatever's there. They never hide anything, but just be a little,
Being
delicate.
sensitive. Yeah,
Sensitive, that's another word.
to the children and
Exactly.
where they are.
Exactly.
Considering their needs.
And not asking them questions. I don't think it's the right thing to do.
I think I'd add one other thing. So one question might come up is, well, what if, you're a parent and you have a child that you've adopted or fostered, and how do you talk about it? Should you talk about it with them? I would say, number one, be transparent. Be wise about, what my wife was saying. Older kids, you can share more. Younger kids, give them some time. You got to feel it out. But I'll tell you one other thing that I told my kids. When I was growing up, I wish I were adopted. Because when you're adopted, guess what? You know you're wanted. Not to say, again, that's not saying, well, if you're natural born, no, that's not what I'm saying, but I can definitely, and again, it says in the Bible, you sometimes see adopted, you sometimes see the word chosen. So, there's any prospective parent or someone who's already adopted a child, be open about it. But put it in context, which is, it's a very positive